Hello there. I'm Scotty. You're not. And welcome to the start of Pick 10, Scotty's Choice. And the first one picked was South Park, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. The feature film coming out in 1999 at the height of South Park's popularity, I guess you would say. But it was really this movie that saved South Park. There wasn't really... Like, the first 3 seasons of the show, I guess, weren't well received. And, after this had a bigger budget. And after this, the show just ballooned. And kind of leaned more towards what was going on in this movie than what it did. And you watch the first 3 seasons, it's very different. You can get a musical number here or there. The comedy, while being kind of out there, is not far out there. And then after season 3, everything gets, like... You get more musical numbers. The comedy gets a little more outlandish. And the fact is, it lasted over 25, 30 years. Almost 30 years. I don't think it's 30 yet. Shows the longevity of this show. But, yeah. South Park is a show about 4 little boys named Eric, Stan, Kyle, and Kenny. The latter, of course, Kenny, being a character that dies in almost every episode. After a certain point, like, up till season 5, he dies for real in season 5, like, for good. And for all of season 6, he's gone, replaced with Tweak. And then he comes back in season 7, and they don't kill him off as much. But, like, every episode, he dies. That's a big thing, and he just keeps coming back. And, of course, that happens here. But, yeah. And... yeah, it's just 4 boys living their lives in a Colorado town, weird things happening, and it's an adult humored show. And I think for me, the biggest issue I've had with South Park is that the humor for me, unlike other adult-based shows, cartoon shows at least, doesn't really land. For me, like some of the stuff, like I actually like some of the earlier South Park stuff, the first 3 seasons, because to me, I find it funnier than some of the stuff they would go for afterwards. And if this film is any indication as to, what would become of the show, I don't really like watching some of their stuff. I have seasons 1 and season 20, I think it is. And I got season 20 on Blu-ray, and I tried watching it, and the whole member berry stuff, I'm sitting there going, what happened to this show? Because I had the first 5 seasons, and I used to have that collection or thing, whatever. But I had like season 1 and season 5 at one point, trying to collect what I could. But even then, there was decent humor in those episodes, like Finger Bang and everything. In the early seasons was fine, and once you get going, like with Family Guy and The Simpsons, it just And even with adult humored cartoon shows, I lean towards shows like Family Guy or Robot Chicken that will have a longevity. I don't think Robot Chicken lasts long. Is it still going? I don't know. But, the better adult comedy in those. They don't go too far. And the thing with Robot Chicken, it's only like 15 minutes an episode, so there's less to do. It's very rapid fire, and it works. The humor in that show works. To me, this is a good example of how the humor works and doesn't work. There's a lot of good stuff in this, but there's some stuff that's not. When they can conceive this, they pitched this to Paramount, Trey Parker, Matt Stone, and Paramount wanted to do a musical. Like, oh, we don't know, because I don't think they did much with musicals at this point, here and there, but they did it. And to start watching this, and it seems like a very Disney-esque musical with Stan coming out and singing, "There's a bunch of birds in the sky," or something, and they have this little very Disney rendition of the song. And once that's done, you get to the humor. They're going to see this. There is a show within a show on South Park called Terrence and Phillip. The kids watch. Terrence and Phillip are going to have they're Canadian. Hello, buddy. They're very Canadian. They're Canadian. They're a Canadian duo whose one big joke is farts. That's it. Literally, it's always, "Hello, Terrence. Hello, Phillip. Guess what? What?" That is the joke. That is literally the joke. Or if they do any kind of joke, the punchline is always, that is the joke. And of course, teenagers are going to laugh at that. Kids are going to think that's funny. Fart jokes is funny. So, Terrence and Phillip are having their very first film. Terrence and Phillip, Asses of Fire. And you can see already, this movie is going to be like a satire on censorship and how it could go out of control and off the rails and all that stuff. And when it's doing that storyline, it works. Like, I'm sitting here watching this, I'm like, okay, this is work. This is working. And then it goes upside down and gets turned on its head. So, yes, the kids go to see this movie, and it causes them to swear like sailors in school. Now, growing up in the 90s, there were kids that swore, but never so much in front of adults. Like, it doesn't, the way they show it in the film is way exaggerated from what it could be. As kids, you swore, but not in front of adults because you knew you would get in trouble for doing it. So you do it when you're with your friends, hanging out, whatever. But when you were in front of an adult, you wouldn't do that unless you were being disrespectful to an adult. Like, maybe in front of your parents and stuff, you wouldn't say it. Some guy you met on the street, maybe. I mean, I wouldn't have done that, but I'm just saying, you know. So they goes a little bit uncontrolled here. But what really sets it off is that the kids sneak back in to see Terrence and Phillip Asses on Fires for a second time. And this sparks a argument between Eric Cartman, and Kenny. And Kenny, who's, like I said, one character thing is that he dies. The argument is that you couldn't set your farts on fire. Which, in real life, you can, but not to the way that they portray it here. In real life, it would cauterize your butthole shut. Whereas here, of course, Kenny gets set on fire and he dies because Dr. George Clooney replaces his heart with a potato. And this sparks the mothers of South Park to go on a revenge mission against Canada and abduct Terrence and Phillip with Conan O'Brien's help to execute them during a USO show. Yes, and so the kids have to mount a rescue mission to save Terrence and Phillip and stop their moms from going crazy. Meanwhile, Cartman, who is swearing uncontrollably at this point, gets a V-chip put inside of him. The V-chip, which really was a thing that they wanted to do, it was put in like TVs and stuff, like a child control, so they couldn't, parental control, so they could watch certain shows. They actually did want to put it inside kids back in the day, but that never happened. Thank God. I don't know why. But here, you put it inside Cartman, and every time, it's like a lie detector, I guess they say. Every time he swears, he gets an electrical shock, which leads to calamity. And, yeah. And so, with a straightforward plot like that, you think, okay, the kids are going to go. They're going to convince the moms to stop this. There's a war between the U.S. and Canada because the Canadians bombed the Baldwins. Timely reference. As if they all live on the same compound together. I don't know. The Canadians bombed the Baldwins for the U.S. kidnapping Terrence and Phillip. This leads to a war between the U.S. and the Canadians. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but yeah, and so then, like I said, the kids have to work together to stop. Yeah. Now, before I get into my biggest problem with this film, let's talk about some of the good points. The animation in this was a step up from what they would do on the show. It looks like cardboard cutout stuff they do on the show. Here, you have some CGI effects. The fire effects look really good. Like when Kenny's on fire, it looks pretty good. And there's some like computer-generated stuff in here. It looks really good. When Kenny goes up to heaven, of course, you see cartoon boobies. But then when he goes up, it looks pretty cool. When he goes down, thrown to hell, all the fire and stuff looks really cool. The animation in this step up. The music in this is also pretty good. Like, you had some music in the show before, but I think it would go more and more and more now after this. And some of the best songs are in this movie, like What Would Brian Boitano Do? Kyle's mom's a big fat bitch. Even that You Could Do It, It's All Up to You, song. Just great music in this overall. And, this idea of the censorship plot. I think it works. What doesn't work, everything with Satan and Saddam Hussein. So it is foretold, apparently, that when the blood of Terence and Philip is spilled, hell will rise up and unleash itself upon the earth. Satan, who is in a monogamous relationship with Saddam Hussein, who in 1999 was not dead yet. He didn't die until 2006. Thank you, George W. Bush, I guess. But anyway, he didn't die in 2006, so he's already in hell to take vacations there. I don't know. The one running joke is that he likes to boink the devil in the butthole. And yeah, running sex joke, I guess, with them. And yes, this whole plot point with hell rising up, it just, every time they would go to hell, I'm just like, what is going on? Why are we doing this? This should be more, and there's a point in this film where it feels like it should be over. And in the if logic is put into this, then it should have been over. There's a point where the kids finally stand up to their moms. Kyle finally stands up to his mom, with the other kids, and says, "Enough. You've gone too far. This is enough." And this should have been the conclusion with the mom. Kyle's mom coming to the realization that she has become a monster and gone too far with this. There's an all-out war going on, and it should be more about the kids. He even says, "Why is it every time I get in trouble, you have to make it about everything else? Why can't you just talk to me?" And that right there would have been a good point to end the movie. But this is South Park. So instead of accepting what her son says and saying, "Okay, you're right, Kyle," and hugging her son, she shoots Terrence and Philip. And hell rises up. And Saddam Hussein says he's going to rule the earth. And Kenny comes with because he was in hell, which... If Kenny just died in the middle of the movie and wasn't seen anymore, I think it would be fine. They've done it before with the show, where he died like early on, or maybe even halfway through, and he's not in the rest of the show, or the rest of the episode, I should say. That works. But I just feel the whole Satan stuff doesn't work. It's there because we need a big climactic moment, and it does that, but then it just leads to... it just leads to a moment where the devil stands up for himself against Saddam Hussein, throws him back into hell, and becomes friends with the people, and Kenny gets one wish to reverse everything. Not really, just puts everything back the way it was. Everyone is back alive again, and the world is normal again, and yeah. And movie ends. Also, we have to have the punchline to the V-chip joke, as Cartman keeps on, he swears, "I had that time of it," whole thing. And so here's one thing is that he goes to turn off the power, but he gets electrocuted, and it messes with the V-chip, so every time he starts swearing now, electricity comes off, and this leads to one big swearing bubble, or whatever that he comes out with. It ends with Barbra Streisand, which is kind of funny. And, yeah, he said, but Barbra Streisand, and big old electricity thing that helps fight the devil's soldiers, or whatever. And yeah, that's the big payoff to that joke. And yeah, the movie ends up ending. And I just feel like the logical conclusion would be, like I said, for Kyle's mom to realize that she is in the wrong and makes up with her sons and apologizes. Now, yeah, there would be some lives lost, but at this point, Terrence and Phillips would still be alive, right? Like, and you can drop the whole. And it wouldn't matter if these characters died because they could just come back in this episode, much like Kenny. So it wouldn't matter if some characters died because you could just bring them back again because Kenny always dies and comes back, so why can't they, right? So yeah, just the one thing watching it this time that kind of bugged me is that all this, the Satan and Saddam Hussein stuff just didn't work. You know, it's there because we need a big climactic fight, but it wasn't really necessary to me. But in the end, it is an enjoyable film. I really like watching the movie. It's something that I can put on in the background. I want to have something, fun to watch. I have the soundtrack for this along with another South Park CD I got from a friend of mine. And I like listening to it. I love the music in this. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a pretty good. The only thing that stops it from going to the moon is if they took out the Satan stuff. I think it would be a to the moon movie for me, but I'm just saying. So let's go ahead and roll the dice on the next. God damn it! God, son of a bitch! Do I have the V-chip? I just got electrocuted. No. 7. Okay. So 7. It is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I did it wrong the last time, but we did. And it is Fanboys. All right. Feel like the one I really wanted to review is going to be the last one that I do. I'm not going to say which one it is yet. But, yeah, I'm going to have to talk about this because, it's about something else that's very important to me. Star Wars. So, we will talk about that. So, what are your thoughts on the South Park Bigger, Longer, Uncut, and Uncut? No comments, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one. And remember to ask yourself, what would Brian Boitana do?